Hey everyone, welcome to this beautiful, I say sunny day here in Utah. So we welcome you to Whistling Consulting State of the Union, State of the Solar Industry webinar that we put together. We appreciate you guys jumping in and just want to take care of a few housekeeping rules. My name is Ben Peterson. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Whistling Consulting. And we're going to take about 45 minutes. We're going to talk about some of the key elements and aspects of what's going on in the industry, get your perspective and insights. And I want to start out by first introducing our in-house team of experts. I want to start out with Catherine Kelso, who's our Director of Commercial Design. She's been designing since 2005, and she's a double E. She's helped grow our team to what we're 15 or 16 people now just in the commercial design department from August, starting around 4 or 5 to now 15 to 16 individuals designing with the growth that we've had. I'd like to introduce Craig Elvestad, who is our Director of Electrical Engineering. He's played with electricity since he was 3, and he was with the utility companies for 30 years, and then the last 12 years he spent on this side of the meter, joined the
we call him Dr. Watts. We call him Dr. Watts.
And he's
Killer
a wealth of he has a wealth of expertise. We got Heath Harpster, who is our Director of Structural Engineering. I call him Sugar. That's more of a personal thing, but we have such a great time together here, and there isn't much Heath doesn't know in structural engineering, and he runs our department there. And last but not least, the captain, Scott Whistling, who has brought together all these. I'd say he's good at herding cats, and we appreciate him for all he's done to bring this business.
Did I tell you I really don't like cats? Did I tell you that, Ben?
Nope. Nobody heard that, right? For the people that love cats. Perfect. So we'll turn it over to Scott to kind of direct us from here.
Hey guys, well, it's a pleasure to have all of you on our webinar, and this is probably the best attendance that we've had thus far. So bear with me. I'm a little intimidated by all of you very knowledgeable people on this call, but we are excited to be involved in the solar business, and we're excited to be working with most of you on this call are people that we work with and that we're doing projects with and that we use as resources. So we're happy to be able to be part of this industry. They call it the solar coaster for a legitimate reason, because there's constant up and downs in the industry that affect where we go in the future. So having these types of meetings are truly beneficial for all of us to probably get a sense as to what's out there, what can we anticipate, and kind of get a sense as to maybe there's some things that we talk about on this call that could help you guys with your business. Again, we're willing and able to be a resource to you guys. For those of you who don't know what we do design and engineering in the solar business, commercial design, as Catherine's heading up that department. We also do a fair amount of structural work as far as foundation repairs, foundation designs, and we even do some renewable energy that don't involve solar, such as EV chargers. So we've been around for a while. Most people know and heard of Whistling Consulting. I think we were kind of first to market where it came to engineering in the solar business, and we've been pretty well respected in the industry since that time. And as Ben said, I like to herd cats. I'd like to say I like to herd really, really good people. And I'd have to say that the success that we've had over the years has really nothing to do with my efforts, but everything to do with these people on this call and all of the people who work at Whistling Consulting. We started out pretty humble with 1 or 2 people, and then we now have 60 employees, and we're fairly well respected in the industry. So anyway, thank you for joining us. I have some topics that I want to chat about today, and I figure that will lead kind of questions and discussions that we're hoping to have. I really would encourage all of you to contribute. If you have a question, drop something in the chat. Ben is going to be kind of monitoring the chat as well, and we can either field your question or give you an opportunity to chat on your own. If you raise your hand, we're more than happy to turn your mics on and be able to hear what you have to say. We did ask a couple individuals with their individual companies to kind of be on a panel discussion a little bit, kind of give them a little bit of a heads up. And I like to call on some people, like I know a lot of people I'm seeing on the call already that I might just ask you some questions. So be prepared if I'm just going to ask you a question, right? So just to run through the couple of the people that we're planning to have field some questions and maybe have some discussion. Glenn Woodruff from Iron Ridge is on the call. We have Bobby Milborn. Actually, Bobby Milborn is not on the call, I don't think, right? But Troy Powell is going to talk a little bit about EcoFlow and EcoTri. They're a battery and distribution company. And then we have Luke Harden, who is from Chint Power Systems, which supplies inverters. And we will have him give us some insight as well. And then Troy, we talked about Troy. Bradley Brand, are you on the call, Brad, from K2? I'm not sure if you were able to join or not. Maybe see if he's there, Ben, I'm not sure. And then we have Chase Labrum from Goodleap to help to kind of talk through a little bit of financing issues. And I'm sure that'll be a lively discussion that we've had. So anyway, let's start off by talking a little bit. Let's start off right into talking a little bit about finance and what has changed in the industry. I know that we've seen a lot of consolidation in the industry, and a lot of it has to stem to some of the financing partners that are in place and some who actually have, left the business at this point. I know requirements have changed quite a bit for finance companies. So if I could ask Chase, we can unmute Chase and maybe see if he can give us some insight on what some of the changes that we can expect to see or that we have seen and how it would impact our industry and the solar business. Are you there, Chase?
Yeah, I have him unmuted there, so.
You have to unmute yourself as well, Chase.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, perfect. Are you can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. Well, again, my name is Chase Labrum. I'm with Complete Solar. I've been in the solar industry for over 11 years now, and we've all seen a lot of changes within the finance atmosphere in the world in the last month or so. Mainly with 2026 with the domestic content is really the biggest thing that I've been noticing. So when it comes to 2026 domestic content requirements, it's important to note that all of our projects must be FEOC compliant, which requires a minimum 40% domestic content. If a project is not FEOC compliant, we cannot move forward until it is brought into compliance. This also applies with installations that have already been completed, right? So if it's already been completed and its non-domestic equipment must be removed and replaced with qualifying domestic equipment to meet the FEOC requirements. So since January 1st, this has been a big, just a big kind of, I wouldn't say issue necessarily, but with all the changes as far as the FEOC compliance versus just regular domestic content compliance. So again, FEOC compliant has to be met before we will move forward, regardless if it's domestic content or not, right? So 40% is the minimum for it to be FEOC compliant. And Goodleap, we do provide a lot of resources. We just introduced a calculator, but we also have a resource center as well with frequently asked questions, things of that nature. So there are, so the equipment is much, like as far as what's available, we have eliminated a lot of, like products such as Chinese products, Korean products, things of that nature. Ground mounts, for example, are also not allowed moving forward with Goodleap when it comes to the 2026 50% requirements, right? So that's the biggest thing I've noticed over the last month is just the equipment aspect of it, specifically with the FEOC, being introduced for 2026. So we've noticed some of our 2025 projects, if it doesn't receive NTP by the end of December, So December, I think 29th was the cutoff date, then those projects will automatically switch to 2026. So with this being February, a lot of our new projects now are automatically 2026 with the 50% requirements. So again, I do ask everyone to review our resource center. It will provide all the information that you need as far as which equipment is available and allowed with GoodLeap. Secondly, we do have a DC2 program that is still going on. And we want to address some recent frustration, specifically around the roof attachment fasteners. Under the 2024 domestic content rules, installers must use domestic rails, fasteners, and roof attachments to qualify. While the DC2 Safe Harbor program allows GoodLeap to work with SED to package the modules, battery, and racking, roof attachments are selected and ordered by the installer through the SED portal. This distinction was recently identified over the last probably 2 months, and is now being consistently enforced across all DC2 projects, right? So that means your invoices and bill of materials will also have to display this fastener, this roof attachment fastener, and it must be domestic. Okay, so that's all in our resource center as well. We do have several, products that we do, with GoodLeap and whatnot, and they do have different requirements. So again, please go back to our resource center if you have any questions. I'm also available as well. So that's pretty much all I have, everyone. Again, the biggest thing is just the FEOC compliance. We just need to make sure that we reach our 40% domestic content for it to be compliant.
So for those of you, explain what the SEOC is, a solar energy operating contract, right? Is that basically what it is with the Department of Energy, right? Can you
Correct.
explain that? Go maybe a little more detail as to how that, what that entails and what it means, other than we need 40% at this point. Can you go into a little more detail on that, Chase?
Like as far as like what I may be, sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, it's FEOC. Yeah.
Yeah,
foreign
it's-
content, yeah, not SEOC.
Yeah, a legal agreement between is it the owner of the property?
It's
Is
not,
it the
yeah. Like Tad
contractor?
said, it's not SEOC, it's FEOC, Scott.
It's
It's
FEOC.
Yeah, foreign
FEOC.
content versus domestic, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's the equipment that is being used on the project then, right, Chase?
Correct. The rails, fasteners, things of that nature, batteries, so yeah, they just have to be, so in our calculator, which is actually really nice, it actually, whatever equipment that you want to use, so if it's a specific module, specific inverter, or a specific rail, you can go in our calculator and select whatever SKU or product you're using. And then when you calculate it, it'll bring out a point system or a percentage system. So, Q cells, a lot of people use Q cells, but these Q cells have different percentages as far as domestic content in them. So if these modules, for example, don't have the 40% requirement, then we will just not use them whatsoever, right? So if there's an equipment or
that affects the funding of these projects,
Correct.
right? So money would not be funded by at least GoodLeap and the other finance companies without compliance with this FEOC, right?
Correct. Yep, that's correct.
And then Tad had a question of,
Yeah,
said-
go ahead.
he said, Chase, what's the max loan size for rooftop commercial? And what is the loan to cost? For example, a $300 EPC delivered solar system. I don't know if you can answer that off the top of your head or.
I don't know if I'll be able to answer that. I don't work on the commercial side of things. I work mainly with the residential side of things right now. So as far as commercial side, I probably wouldn't be best to answer that.
Okay, perfect. And
Okay.
Chase will drop his contact information in and he'll get you to the right person there, Tad, to answer any
Yeah, if you want to
questions.
drop your email into the chat, you're welcome to do that, Chase. I appreciate it.
And we'll
So
get you-
this is pretty big. This is huge. Domestic content, we've seen a tremendous amount of changes in a lot of what's been going on and in our designs, and I'm sure there's other people here who do designs that have seen that issue pop up. We are constantly doing revisions based on equipment changes to address the domestic content. How does that affect some of you on this call? I would love to get your input to see what your thoughts are. I think everybody has had to pivot to domestic content, and I suspect it is increasing costs on our end to do that, but without the financing, it's hard to be able to do these projects without using the domestic content so you can get that financing. Anybody want to chime in here?
Yeah, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
Looks like Tad's got his hand up.
Okay, Ted, let me jump over to you real quick. All right, you're good to go, my friend. You're unmuted. And then I'll mute you too, Kelsey. She has a question. Just have to unmute yourselves too when I allow your mic.
Yeah, it's a double mute. Yeah, I don't blame Goodleap for having the fiat content. I mean, no person in their right mind would blow a 30 to 50% tax credit, which is 30 to 50% of the project cost. So if Goodleap is loaning 30% of the cost, they may not care about fiat, because if the tax credit's blown, they're still covered because it's such a small loan. But if they obviously have a 70, 80% or 100% loan, and that fiat is blown and the tax credit is not given, now all of a sudden the project's way underwater. So yeah, so I mean, it's a significant thing. What we're trying to do on our end is, making our vendors of the product itself certified to us that it's fiat compliant, or what percentage is fiat content is foreign content versus domestic content. So we're trying to, push all that risk back on them, so that, when we go to do a project, whether it's a PPA or whether it's a direct install, that the customer or our lender or our investor knows that we've got the backstop of the actual people who provided the product. So I don't know if that's the right way, but that's the way we're doing it right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is the best way to do it. And I mean, obviously these finance companies need to have some security in what is being loaned out, right? And requiring the domestic content certainly helps with our local companies here. But again, it's at a cost for sure. Kelsey, did you want to chime in here? You're on mute, Kelsey. I thought you had your hand raised. If you didn't, I
She did for a minute, but
you got to unmute
It's a
yourself.
double mute. They have to unmute you. And
yeah, I
go
allow
right
the
in
mic and
corner
then it
to-
just then allows you to
Yeah.
unmute yourself. Yeah.
She can't.
Can we unmute her on our end? I'm not
No.
sure if we can do
I
that.
can't. No, I tried to.
Okay.
Actually, I'm not seeing it. Is she still in here?
Well, let's
I
let
think this is
Glenn.
Glenn. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn, go ahead, Glenn, and we'll come back to you, Kelsey. There should be a mic
Yeah.
next to your camera icon, mic that has an X to it. Just click on that. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak a little bit to Iron Ridge's position. We work with the TPO providers to provide documentation and visibility, and then they do the due diligence. But all our domestic content SKUs are fiat compliant. And you can go to our website. We have a little tool in there that you can actually go through and see which particular SKUs are domestic content and which are fiat compliant. The other thing I want to stress too is work with your TPO provider and their AVL, because there is interpretation and things like that. So they might have particular requirements for the products that they want on their AVL. And then on the commercial side, the commercial developer is going to need to do their own diligence on fiat and domestic content. So partner with manufacturers that you trust that can provide you proper documentation. Because the TPOs have this back office and these third-party accounting firms that are helping them do this validation. So some diligence on the commercial developer side to work with the manufacturers on fiat and domestic content compliance.
Yeah, I mean, there's three major components for a commercial job, the feet, the panels, and the inverters. And, like in our last job, I think we were using EcoFeet mission panels and Solar Edge inverters. And I think it's by dollar value, if I recall, or maybe it's by percentage of because you have to weight them all. There's 3 pieces there that are the major components that have to be over 50% to comply. So, yeah.
and I'll stress that too.
Glenn's right. The Iron Ridge, if
Um,
you're in a different environment, is a significant cost component.
I think the other thing to stress is that FIAC and domestic content are 2 distinct things, even though they're referencing the same table. So, you know, domestic content's like a carrot, right? I'm going to get this bonus credit for having domestic content. FIAC is an absolute necessity.
Yeah, he's right.
Right.
I'm using the terms loosely.
So it's very important to understand that, like, you're trying to achieve 2 different percentages using the same table. So you're using the domestic content table from the safe harbor tables to achieve that 40%, right? So just recognize that they're 2 different things and that you're applying them in 2 different ways.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. And Tad, thanks for your input. I'm not sure, Kelsey, if you were able to figure out how to get your mic unmuted.
Kelsey, I'm guessing, I'm a tech guy. I'm guessing that you have multiple windows open on your computer and one of your windows is just covering up the upper right corner of your Teams window. And that's where the button is. It says mic. Oh, maybe her mic's just broke.
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries. Let's go on to a
No.
different topic. If you figure it out, just let us know, Kelsey. No big deal.
And you can drop questions in the chat too.
Yeah. On the topic of, well, one of the questions I had, or one of the things I wanted to bring up was the 3741 requirement on racking. And Glenn, since you have been chiming in, do you want to maybe fill us in a little bit more about what those requirements were and how Iron Ridge has addressed those? I think that has been a bit of a change in the industry.
Yep. UL 3741 rapid shutdown requirements. So the code is adapted to provide different design methods. So PV rapid shutdown compliant system, and they list several different methods to comply with that. You know, there's recently been some evolution to that code where they're looking at like air gaps and additional methods to make the system safe. So definitely an evolving space. I think you guys might be seeing more systems design. I think as we go forward, where people are trying to, you know, they don't have access to those tax credits anymore, and they're trying to reduce costs on system, and they can remove those power electronics equipment. Maybe system design will evolve. Right now, you see, you know, I did a survey of, you know, a bunch of different engineering firms. It was a little bit all over the place, but I think the consensus was about 20 to 30% of systems are being designed on the commercial side to UL 3741. So, you know, there are particular inverter manufacturers or power electronic manufacturers that have domestic content material available, which could, you know, keep that number suppressed a little bit. But it's something to watch out for and something to, you know, talk to your engineering firms like Whistling to say, okay, is this project suitable for this particular system design where I can lower the capital cost of the system that way? I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that answers the question.
It's a system design consideration that you're seeing a greater adoption of. So like our BX system has a UL 3741 listing, and we have addendums to teach the contractors how to comply with the listing requirements. And we also have that for our flush mount systems as well. That's another interesting thing you're going to see is the availability of components in which to achieve compliance, right? So for one listing, you have to co-locate the inverter. Well, how do you co-locate an inverter on a pitched roof, right? So now you have string level rapid shutdown devices coming out and stuff like that. So just a really interesting space and something that Whistling is very familiar with. It can help, you know, design to those parameters or potentially just talk to you about what that design looks like. And
no, I appreciate that, Glenn. And I'm going to ask Greg if he could chime in a little bit on what we've been doing and how we've been helping our customers understand how this affects designs and the benefits of it for UL 3751 compliance.
Yeah. So as Glenn was talking about, it's about cost containment, and we're looking to help shave dollars where we can. Just taking the Tygo TS4 as an example. I mean, this retail price is about $35 a head, right? If you got, 400 of those suckers on the rooftop, that's the $10,000-$12,000 you're going to save in not installing those and using 3741 compliant racking and getting the inverters mounted on the rooftop. And so, like Scott said, that's one of the things we like to talk with our clients about is have you considered that? Sometimes certain things you've got a really good price on racking and it's not 3741 compliant and you need to use it to use up your inventory. That's totally understandable. But we look for opportunities to do that. Another consideration on that is code compliance and helping jurisdictions understand what it means to use 3741. And so we like to pride ourselves in being able to get down into the weeds with the local authorities and talk through those requirements and help to overcome any of the hesitation they might have in using it. Understanding that we're all about in this industry, every one of us on this call are fully vested in doing things safely. There's we have to be able to sleep at night and recommend things that are not going to harm anybody. So that's our first charge as engineering companies and as installers and suppliers. So we're already in the corner with the HJs, and it's just one more way of helping them be comfortable with what's being proposed and brought forth and installed in the industry. Because as you all know, everything in this industry is moving so quickly. It takes an army of smart people to be able to cover all the bases. And it's really not about knowing everything, but knowing who to contact, who has the answers. And forums like this are a great way to be able to do that.
Thank
Can I
you,
just
Greg.
say real quick, Scott,
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn. Yep.
the acceptance at the AHJ level is very high because it's code. But it's more of a, hey, I need more knowledge about this, and can you help me with that? And IronRidge fields those types of questions and can help intercede as well. But I also want to mention too, there's still a place. There's one of the things IronRidge talks about is the different roof types that we can support. Right, we have a ground mount on the roof application if you need to raise it above, AC units or something. There's different approaches, so there's going to be a need for many arrows in the quiver. But it should be part of the conversation about, appropriate design on a per project level.
Yeah. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate that. I think, Tad, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I'm more curious, and I've talked to our own internal staff about this, but I wouldn't mind hearing it from you guys. I had a potential customer that was a national company with like 100 locations and had used solar on their building 7 or 8 years ago. They did it on one of 100 locations. And a number of years ago, they had a fire from the solar. And so I talked them off the ledge and said, technology and safety regarding starting fires, is come a long way. And they said, okay, great. So we had a second meeting. Between our first and second meeting, they had a second fire at that same location, even though it had been rebuilt.
It's not something that I certified, is it, Tad or Greg?
Well, you're probably going to lawsuit on it right now, but no, I don't think so. But I am curious. I'd like to hear from the team here. What is the state of the art to making sure that our industry doesn't start fires? I know the other thing we were talking about was protecting firefighters, but just what about the building itself starting on fire?
A great question, Tad, and it's the thing that's most visible about this industry. I mean, if it the crudeness of the news cycles, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So the situation here with this is the examination of almost all of them, and I can't speak conclusively to the 100% of all of them, but the majority of issues that have been extremely visible and have caused major issues have been centered around workman quality. And so with that in mind, what does that mean? Because you have rolling workforce participation in this industry. What it means is the installing crews must be trained into the proper methods with the proper tools to adequately terminate the interconnection devices, most commonly the MC4s manufactured by Stoibele. Misapplication of what they call MC4 compliance. Candidly, that's garbage. There's no such thing as MC4 compliant. They might fit good, but MC4 is, Stoibele is never going to say that anything except their own stuff will work with their own stuff. So you've got to be careful with the products that you use to make sure that you are buying what is used with your equipment. You got modules. I think Stoibele MC4s are probably the industry standard, but there's a couple other great ones out there. Make sure you're using like for like. Make sure the crews are adequately trained, using the right tools, and cable preparation is the single most common failure. Not only in the solar industry, but in the power industry. As Ben mentioned, I spent a couple decades working in the power company world, and underground cable failures almost always, and I will say that within the last 25 years or closer to now, failures in the underground cable medium voltage range have been with cable preparation. It's not the cable's fault. It's not the termination's fault. It's when it was put together, it didn't follow factory standards and instructions how to do it.
When you're talking about underground, I'm talking about rooftop projects.
Right. Same thing.
Yeah. By the way, we had 10 prospective jobs. Of course, we got 0 after that happened.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. Any other comments on the topic? On that topic, on the Iron Ridge or the UL 3741? Otherwise, we'll move on to another topic. Let's talk a little bit about batteries. We have Troy Powell, who has been working with EcoFlow and EcoTribe, which is a fairly newer product on the market. A battery supplies batteries and manufactures batteries and distribution. At least correct me if I'm wrong, Troy. But let's talk a little bit about the technology of batteries at this point. They've come a long way over the past, I said, 5 to 10 years. And I think there's a long way to go to get to a point even we're going to continue to see the technology of batteries change. So maybe, Troy, can you fill us in a little bit on what EcoFlow has done or EcoTribe as it relates to your batteries?
We got a lot of EcoTribe, eHome, EcoFlow. We've got a lot of E's here. And number one, I appreciate you guys allowing us to be on this call with a lot of the engineering side of this. eHome, and I don't know if you guys know Blake Gailey or Bobby Milborn. They've been in the business, and I've been in the business a long time. About a year ago or so, we kind of transitioned our operations into, instead of just we're a sales org primarily. We work with EPCs, installers, and help them sell their products. So in a way, what we've been positioning ourselves to be is, as this industry changes, to come in and help, particularly, installers or EPCs that maybe need some more help on the sales side. We've been and really help them on that side and take the cost out of there. And so that's where we kind of have positioned ourselves in the market. About a year ago, we started primarily just selling retrofit batteries, instead of doing just solar and batteries. Although that's something we've done for a long time, we saw a need in the market where we feel like there's going to be a lot of retrofit, a lot of new ideas on batteries. And so for the last year, we've been selling primarily out of Arizona, and primarily just been selling, Tesla Powerwall 3, as that solution. About the beginning of this year, EcoFlow, which many of you guys may have heard about, has been in the portable backup batteries business for many years. It's probably the #1 portable backup solution. A lot of stuff you guys have probably never touched. It's been #1. They created a new battery, which is called the EcoFlow Ocean Pro. This is the first battery that is a 24 continuous output. It has a 205 LRA rating. I know you guys are going to know a lot of these terms. It's got a 40 kW solar input with 8 MPPs. It can work with your gas generator. It has the heat protection is 140 heat protection. It's IP65 rated. The batteries, it can go up to an 80 kW. It's a 200 amp smart home panel. So it literally gives you full control of every circuit in the home. It's got AI technology. It's just a brand new product that, we looked at it and we thought in the next 2 to 3 years, in the next year, you're seeing it now, you're seeing the changes in the industry, but, we really feel that there's going to be a few key players, and one of them that we're positioning with, and we're a manufacturer's rep for EcoFlow, is we're helping EcoFlow particularly launch a partner program. So we're looking for, installers that are looking to have additional products and services in addition to your Enphase, in addition to your Tesla and all these other kind of battery solutions that you might, consider adding this as a product add-on. And then if you do, that's great. You can get that through, your normal distribution channels, whether that's GreenTech, whether that's whoever you're buying from, they're a distributor of the product. We're here to help you learn it. And, we've worked with Scott and Ben, and they, just kind of showed it to them and getting them on board so that they'll know how to engineer the product and design it as sales grow. It's a brand new product. It's definitely going to go on a curve like this. But, those partners that want to get involved with us early, there's some good incentives on market development money and things that we can do to help run and help you with leads. Primarily our purpose is to help lower the sales side cost on, most of these installers and just hand them sold deals. Whether that ultimately, whatever solution is best for the homeowner, we're ultimately going to go. But our primary products that we'll be offering, depending on each installer too, because some of them, are certified to do some products and not others. But what they're looking to sell, we're looking to sell, is continue selling our Tesla product, obviously, and then also the EcoFlow Ocean Pro, which we think is going to be a game changer. So that's kind of who we are, and I don't know.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, if you have any questions,
I was
raise
going
your
to say
hand.
that includes the inverter too, right? Isn't it a combo battery
It
inverter?
is.
Yeah.
It's got an inverter, which is the 24 kW continuous,
Yeah.
where like on the Tesla,
Okay.
you've got I believe it's 13.5. The battery is expandable up to an 80 kW, so it could have up to 8 additional batteries could hold on that inverter. And then the smart home panel is either an 8 circuit or a 40 circuit, 200 amp.
Let's see if we can get either Catherine or Greg to chime in as it relates to these batteries and the technology on where we're headed in the industry. I know that we have seen a tremendous amount of projects come through that are battery backups, a lot of battery backups. Some of them are only battery backup at this point. So I don't know who wants to field that, Catherine or Greg. Let you guys duke it out.
I'll let Catherine go first.
I mean, a lot of it boils down to that the grid is having trouble during peak times. And there's a couple of results from that. One is they're creating rates that are way more expensive during peak times, and putting in batteries solves that problem. Putting in batteries at a utility scale is something utilities want contractors to do, so they're incentivizing that as well. So all the way from, simple residential battery to run a little bit of backup power during a grid outage, which grid outages are becoming more common in certain areas due to weather problems and other things, to the utility scale, battery farms, as you'd call them, I guess now. All of that is becoming more of a thing because the grid needs it. And so there's lots of different ways that that's being incentivized, but it's actually a very large thing. We even have some EV providers that are actually selling EV battery power back to the grid during peak times, and then pulling it back out again at night from things like school buses that don't need to be running at 8 p.m. when the grid needs the power. So that's, I think, what's driving
just
most of it.
batteries aren't going away for sure. And the technology, the demand is there for the technology to continue to improve as we move forward.
Yes.
Exactly. Another thing to add to that as well, like Troy was talking about, there's a lot of opportunity for legacy systems that were PV only. And so we're seeing clients do the integration with all of the products that are out there. I mean, we work with everybody's product. We have opportunity to use an engineer. And that forces us to stay on our toes because there's so many products coming through so quickly that we've got a dedicated team of folks who are way smarter than me to analyze these things and make sure that they can be interconnected and designed correctly. So we're working with everybody to get them done correctly, but the opportunity is there for additional revenue if you can get good supplies to be able to do that. So anyway, thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Greg. I think, Chris, you had a question. It's good to see you, Chris. Hope you're doing well. Question for Catherine. Are you seeing a lot of designs using hybrid inverters / batteries that limit AC export, and how are HJs reacting to this?
It depends on the state. And are you asking about commercial or residential?
And I muted you there. I allowed your mic, Chris,
Chris, you got to unmute yourself again.
so you can actually talk and mute.
I don't know. Maybe we've got
Okay.
a technical problem.
So, limiting the AC export,
He's
yeah,
saying
usually
both.
the
He's saying
utilities,
both.
yeah, usually the utilities care more about AC export than AHJs, which you corrected that. And it depends on the situation. Like in some situations, you're limiting AC export. For example, in California, where they're not doing net metering anymore on a residential system, you don't want to feed it back to the grid because they're going to give you 2 cents for it. So you set it for self-consumption. In terms of larger systems that are commercial based, some utilities are actually asking for export during certain times of day. Like I said, that even some EV fleets are being asked to export power at times when the fleet's not being used during peak times. So there are a lot of grid operators that are really getting into, yes, export at this time, or even being able to have a button that they can push to create the export when they want it.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. And then actually, I want to give Heath an opportunity to talk a little bit from a structural standpoint on these batteries. I know a lot of the residential applications that we've seen, we need to provide calculations that batteries are obviously very heavy, and the ones mounted on walls, we need to do some calculations to make sure they won't pull off the wall. But commercially, a lot of these batteries that are being installed are large enough that we have to design a concrete slab. And they may be mounted on posts or A-frames where the batteries are mounted on those. So, Heath, if you want to touch base a little bit on the structural ramifications of these batteries and how they're mounted.
Sure. Yeah, I think everybody knows how batteries mounted onto a typical home, just like on a stud wall, right? As Scott touched on, some of these commercial ones, you basically make your own framing, your own racking, install these on, and whether it's on a slab for bigger transformers or bigger battery packs, or you just do a line of what we call H-frames, where it's basically posts sit in the ground with some uniracks strung in between them with everything mounted. The one I wanted to touch on specifically, because we've been running into it a lot more frequently, and it's usually, unfortunately, after the fact of installation, and this is going to affect residential more, is on brick veneers. I'm going to share my screen real quick so you can see kind of what that looks like. So any home that has brick on the outside or some kind of stone finish, it's probably a veneer, which means it's not structural in nature. It's just kind of attached to it's like a shell of the home, and it's strapped back to the actual structural wall, usually with clips. And so it's not meant to be load carrying, and it's only supposed to be self-supporting. So when you try to mount a battery to that can be troublesome because you don't want to attach to the brick itself. I do have a detail here from Tesla, and this is usually the way to go forward with these rather than creating your own structure to mount them on. is you need to drill a hole through the brick and provide some kind of pipe sleeve back to the wall, and then you can screw through that way. So when you compress it, it doesn't compress the wall. It pushes on that pipe sleeve, and it gives you a good entry into the stud wall behind. And then, like I said, this is usually where you get these after the fact, after it's been inspected and it gets flagged and then it's installed. And some of the troubles with this is actually finding where the studs lie. I know Scott and I have looked at some of these and kind of try to map out the best process from this. And we've determined that you probably want to go from the inside where you can find the studs and drill a pilot hole through everything to the outside so you know where to drill and where to go. But yeah, I don't know, Scott, did you have anything to add to that? I know we talked about this earlier.
Well, with residential application, the best way, usually they're around where garages are, or even in finished area, but really the only way to dead point where a stud comes out is I would drill a hole. You can use a stud finder to find a wood stud from inside a garage or inside a finished area, and then you drill a pilot hole with like a masonry bit that goes through that stud, comes out through the brick, and then you can go out on the brick and then drill a bigger hole through there, and then anchor a longer lag bolt through, not in the brick, but through the brick into the stud. Usually the best way to do it. I don't know. I guess a lot of you may have your own ways of dealing with that. When you're mounting this in a commercial application, the best application is on the ground, right, with a concrete slab, right? But there are a lot of applications. Some of our clients are using batteries and mounting them on the roof. And that becomes a little problematic because of the weight, a little bit more complicated because you have to verify that the roof system will support those point loads on where you're going to be installing the batteries. And I usually put some type of racking system in there to hold the batteries, and they're all concentrated in one area. So that we don't like as much, simply because most times we don't get the best information on those attics, and we don't know what really was, if the roof was designed to support a load like that. A lot of times we don't even know what the working stresses are that have been installed, or maybe something hanging from the roof system that wasn't initially anticipated for. So if you guys are doing projects, I'd prefer you guys to mount the batteries on slabs on the ground, but I know that sometimes it's better to get them up on the roof. So I don't have anything else on the batteries.
No,
So
I mean,
did someone-
those kind of
Go ahead,
installations are definitely doable. Just need the information up front. It can, depending on how you're doing it, it can really put a lot of concentrated force in particular spots on the roof. I've seen pretty much those same H-frames being installed on a roof. Sometimes you have a parapet wall or something else where you can kind of kick back to for support, so you don't have this whole thing trying to tip over under a windstorm or something like that. I've seen H-frames where it's got braces back on both sides and it's basically supported with ballast blocks to prevent it from tipping over. So there's a multitude of options there. Just need to really know what the structure is, and sometimes we don't always have that information.
Thanks, Heath. Any questions related to batteries? Anybody, other ideas or thoughts that maybe anybody wants to add to the discussion? Okay. Last topic, I think I want to talk a little bit about inverters, right? I don't think Luke Harden was able to join us from Chint Power Systems, but I was going to see, Catherine, maybe you could talk a little bit about the trend when it comes to inverters. I know when we were talking in advance of this meeting, we were talking about the size of the inverters and how many are used. So maybe if you could fill us in a little bit on what's good practice, what's bad practice when it comes to inverters.
Well, I mean, it's always up to the contractor, but when it comes to larger systems like multi-megawatt systems, the trend we're seeing is to use more small inverters versus one or two large inverters. A lot of the reasoning for that is when the one big inverter goes down, you now have 2 megawatts of system not operating, versus, if you have several 100K inverters, one of those goes down and you only have a small percentage of the system not operating, plus just the ease of bringing them in to the site and that sort of thing, where you need a crane to get a 100K inverter in there than you do for the larger inverters. And we're even seeing on old systems with large single inverters, those are being replaced with more smaller inverters And they're even now making things called decombiner boxes to uncombine the DC so that they can put it to the smaller inverters versus replacing the one large inverter with another large inverter. So there's been quite a trend on that.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. That was all that I had. There is one other topic that I wouldn't mind to bring up, but just be good information for everybody to have, and we're still kind of working through how this plays out. But in Texas, there is the legislature has passed a Senate bill that allows for third-party inspections in certain jurisdictions in Texas that will remove the need for the jurisdiction to review the plans that are submitted. And it includes inspection as well. So it's not only design, but it's the inspection. We are actively looking to be part of this process. But the one thing is we do a lot of work in Texas and we can't be the third party reviewer for our own work. That's called a conflict of interest, although I would love to be able to do that. So I didn't know if anybody was aware of that, but it certainly makes the process a lot faster going through these jurisdictions in Texas. We do have a couple contacts there. If anybody has in certain jurisdictions, a couple contacts that if we want to put you in contact with them to get some more information about it. But I don't remember the Senate bill. I don't remember, Heath, if you remember it. I know, Greg, we had a conversation with one of the inspectors there, and I can't remember the Senate bill, but I think if you searched on the internet for that, it probably would be something that would come up. The Senate Bill 1202 and 1252.
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah, 1252 and 1202.
Yeah, Kelsey mentioned in the chat here, Scott, that it's been a favorable outcome for their clients in Texas. So it's a good thing. And just like Scott said, if there's need for inspections to happen, we can do that. So
yeah,
some of the jurisdictions.
Go ahead. Sorry, Greg.
I was going to say some of the jurisdictions are usually pretty quick to approve and review plans, so they are really not the ideal candidate for that. But other ones take a lot longer. They're much larger offices, and it can delay things, up to a week or more if they have to do it in house. So it's an opportunity. Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to say. I really do like doing a design and engineering for all of our customers, but I suspect if they're not using us for design and engineering, then we could do that third-party inspections and help in those situations too. So we're happy to help for anybody who's needing that situation as well too. I don't have any other topics. I'd love to hear from you guys. We have a little bit more time, maybe about another 5 or 6 minutes. So if there's anything you guys, questions that you have for anybody on our panel who was here, or anybody who's not on our panel, I know that there's a lot of knowledge in the group that's here. I know, Chris, maybe you might want to share a little bit of what you guys are doing at CREA at this point. They heavy into commercial, doing designs and consulting. I don't know if you want to chime in a little bit, Chris. If we can get your mic to work.
It's weird. And some of, like Kelsey said, it's only select participants are allowed to speak, and I have them, allowed. I have their mic allowed to speak. And you never know with Microsoft. Sometimes my camera doesn't work. It depends on the day. So if you're not able to speak up,
yeah,
you can go ahead and just enter the question in. Yeah,
we really apologize for that. But if someone wants to unmute themselves to see if they can get unmuted and want to contribute, we're more than happy to talk about that.
Yeah. Or just raise your hand and I will try to unmute you. There's no other questions. Can I just say, Scott, we've seen, obviously January was a slow month on the residential side. We do certifications across the country, Canada, and there's a really good optimism across all the clients I've talked to for the rest of the year, minus the January and the residential. Commercial wise, it's exploded. And so those that are dancing in commercial continue to do so with quality. Residential continue to pivot like we always do, right? Anybody that's been in the industry knows that you got to be agile to be able to pivot. But it should be a great year.
Yeah, I'm optimistic for the upcoming year for 2026, and we definitely have seen more of a demand for commercial at this point. I think the tax credits are still there. I think people are focusing on doing that. To be honest with you, I think the residential has gotten to the point where it's a little bit of a bloodbath. I think everybody's competing with each other to try and fight to get the volume. I see it from an engineering standpoint. I see it from a design standpoint. And I think a lot of people have said, you know what? I just don't think there's enough money in there for us to do this. We keep being undercut by other companies trying to get in and capture a little bit of the market. And I think a pivot to commercial has been a way that people are trying to make ends meet when it comes to the solar. So, yeah, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the same thing, but Tad had his hand up, and give you a minute. It looks like your mic works. So
Yeah, I don't know why I'm special.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has to do with guest people or people who are registered users. I know I'm verified, but anyway, I haven't figured out why some people are blocked. But anyway, we don't do residential. We haven't done it in a number of years. We were a Tesla channel partner for a couple of years and we stopped doing that. It's my understanding that with tax credits that you can still do PPAs for residential. Is that what everybody else understands? I see Ben nodding his head.
yeah,
So-
that is
So, you know, I am curious if residential can still go forward with tax credits, at least for some period of time for this year, and if they get signed up by certain dates and things. But maybe people are just choosing not to do them because the PPA adds an extra layer of cost and it's just small scale and it's a hassle because, you know, you're financing all these tiny little projects. Is that kind of, does anybody have a comment on it? Is that the reason why residential is not in a temporary 6 month to 12-month boom for PPAs because nobody's doing them anymore? Like,
Glenn, go ahead.
anybody
Glenn
have an
has something
opinion?
to say.
Yeah, well, I think just there's a couple things going on. One, it's the start of the year, and it was a huge end of the year last year, so there's
Yeah.
some fatigue on the sales side, the install side,
Yeah,
and then there's a training up process, right? So I think Chase could probably speak better to this, but you have people that are used to selling traditional loans, and now they're going to a TPO product, and there's a training aspect for their sales team and getting used to that sales process. So I think that those will probably increase as the year goes forward.
is the opposite side of the bloodbath an opportunity for somebody who's willing to go out like ourselves or somebody else and approach residential customers again? Because we do PPAs with a you know, signing them up and getting them under the safe harbor, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, maybe. Am I talking to myself?
Yeah, I don't, who wants to field that question? I'm not sure that I'm best positioned to do that.
I mean, are there customers out there? Is there still a lot of people out there who would consider PPAs if it was offered to them? Because a lot of these, like you were saying, there's a lot of people who are trained to just take the sale and take the deposit, and they aren't in the PPA world yet.
But I mean, I would say just on the one side, I mean, if you can go in, just like in any sales, like Troy knows, you go in and then you just have to sell it differently. Hey, look, power's always going to go up, right? So you're going to go in, you're going to lock in your rate. That's one of the big sell things with the TPO.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Troy, if you have any other insight on that when you're dealing with that side of it.
I agree 100%. I think that everybody was, you know, used to this 30%, and now in the market, it's just, you know, that dynamic has been changed, that people just as a consumer aren't really aware of those. But it's a different way of just selling. But I do think, to your first point, is I think there's a huge opportunity to go back to existing clients that have not had, you know, in our case, like a battery. That's why we kind of transitioned, because most of the solar people did not have a battery, and then now the utilities are changing a lot of the things. So I do think the demand is going to be, and I think there's good money there, you know, to come back into existing clientele. So if you have a good book of business and you can now remarket back to them and get them into things, I think there's going to be a demand for that. And that's why we really believe that, you know, we do a lot of standalone. It has been a slow January for sure, but we do a lot of standalone and retrofit, and we're seeing a big demand for that now in the
Right.
that section.
Another key point on that Kelsey mentioned is training gap for sales.
Is
And
what?
so the gap in training for sales.
Huge,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Kelsey, can you
changing
try and
them
unmute
on what they're
yourself
used to
now?
selling.
Saying it's not.
There you
It
are.
works.
Oh,
That's
wow.
it.
Figured it out.
Scott just
I
had to
figured it
speak
out.
and it worked.
No, it was under
You
control
spoke
for
over my
some
computer
reason.
and fixed it.
Sometimes Scott will tease people
I
and mute
felt
them,
so
unmute
bad.
them.
Kelsey, tell us. I mean, I know you've been wanting to tell us, so tell us
Oh.
what your thoughts are here. I know you've been putting it into the chat. And Chris, I
Well-
want to give you a chance, even if we go over a minute more.
No, I don't have anything profound. I'm just plus oneing everything everyone's saying. I'm not on the sales side, but that's, I'm obviously designs are down. And when I ask, they're like, the sales guys don't even know what to say. The installers are still, they started a bunch of projects to hit the end of the year. So they're out there trying to finish those projects. I think everyone is just kind of clamoring right now to get everything done, and then they'll figure out money, next month when the bills aren't paid.
Yeah, I agree. I think the PPA programs are what are going to be, people are going to be starting to push now. They push what gets the best bang for the buck. And the PPAs are what's these tax credits are still doing. So you're going to see a lot of that being pushed. So
I agree.
Chris,
Can
I
can
think-
you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you, Chris.
Yeah, so Chris, I always wish people had their logo because I don't know who they are. Chris, you're a vendor of equipment, is that right?
No, we're a solar consultancy firm.
Okay,
Um,
so you're saying, when you
so-
say your resi customers, you're talking about like, I could be, like you consult to I'm an EPC and you
Yeah.
consult to me? Okay, so
Yeah.
you're saying, yeah, a lot of your customers are saying, hey, how do we do PPAs? I found it interesting that you said they're using GoodLeap just because they're finding that the most efficient mechanism to help process people through the PPA process.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, when I say most, I would say everybody's using GoodLeap, to be
Yeah.
honest. So there you go, Chase. Yeah, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, he's buying you dinner, Chris.
Yeah, so the customers that I'm seeing, that there's some customers that have actually done really well starting out the new year or in the end of last year after they built their traditional, finance projects. They're the customers that have gotten themselves ahead of the curve using PPAs. Like we have a customer in St. Louis area that does KCN St. Louis, really successful using, I'm sure Chase knows them, I won't mention their name, but really successful in using PPAs and have not even seen a downturn. Everyone's switching away from the door knocker method because, which is great because it'll get rid of those high dealers fees that were such a travesty to our industry. But yeah, the customers who have put themselves in place with PPAs and using internal sales rather than sales groups have seen some success. In fact, they're taking business away from other EPCs. So seeing a lot of that. Was just in Hawaii last week. Lots going on in the islands just because they're totally underserved there. Everybody's using kind of the same thing. No one's touching them. I was asking Ben, I don't know who's here from Chint. It was great to see Chint out there. Iron Ridge was there. A lot of, there was only probably like 30 people that had booths there, and 80% of them are battery companies. So it goes to show you how the industry is switching. But yeah, I mean, for those out there that are looking for an underserved area, Hawaii is it. I mean, with the price of electricity at
I'm
35
in.
cents.
Anybody want to move to Hawaii with me?
Yeah, right? It was so nice to be there, like going from Denver to Hawaii was like, yeah, it was great. But great community there. Just no one pays attention to that market, which is very interesting.
All right. Well, hey, I would love to chat with you guys more, and I do apologize for having that issue with the mics. But at least I'm glad Kelsey and Chris, you were able to have a chance to chat. And we've gone a little bit over by 5 minutes over. I got to tell you, I am super impressed with all of you on this call and with the industry and how we all kind of position ourselves and move as the market moves to be able to help ourselves stay and competitive in the industry and be leaders here. So, you know, I've loved working with you guys. I love working with my team as well. And I guess just keep up the good work. And thank you so much for attending our webinar here. We appreciate it for sure. And we're always here to serve you guys. If you ever have anything, you can reach out to me personally or anybody on my team. And we're here to help. So appreciate you guys and have a great day. Thank you.
Hey, thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate
care.
you guys.
Thank you all.